Hey everybody, this is Cameron, and today my guest is filmmaker Rob Christopher, who has just made a short film called My Last Martini, based on the short story by Barry Gifford, and it stars Mickey O'Sullivan, Wendy Roby, and Madrid St. Angelo. So thank you, Rob, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed your film.
Oh, great to talk with you, Cameron, and it's really cool to be on the channel.
So the first time I heard about this was when Daniel Knox was putting together his show at the Music Box. And I was like, oh, wow, there's going to be this cool film. I didn't know it was a short film at the time, but I heard that Wendy Roby was in it. So before we get into all the details regarding your film, why don't you tell us what it was like to showcase your film at a David Lynch film festival between Wild at Heart and The Wizard of Oz?
Well, it was kind of an out of body experience, honestly. It was like the most perfect venue I could have possibly conceived of. We were given the slot. It was like, I don't know, 4 o'clock on a Thursday. I was like, I hope there'll be a couple people there. It's not the best time to show a movie. But much to my astonishment and delight, the auditorium was basically sold out, and suddenly 700 people are watching my brand new film. And to have Wendy there for a Q&A after the short was just fantastic. I mean, my short film is 14 minutes and the Q&A was more than 20 minutes long, so we actually talked longer than the film itself. But it was just really cool. And the Music Box is a very special place for me. Been going to the Music Box since I was in college, so decades of memories there. It was just fantastic. I mean, what else can I say?
So in doing the research on you, I found out that you are a huge David Lynch fan, particularly Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart. I think that you and I must be near the same age because that was like my favorite period of David Lynch's work as well growing up. And now to be working with Barry Gifford on not just this, but on a prior film that you made called Roy's World, Barry Gifford Chicago, which to my amazement got endorsed by David Lynch himself. So, I mean, that's absolutely incredible. So, why don't you walk us through the process of you being a filmmaker, approaching Barry Gifford about doing his Chicago film and how that translated itself into My Last Martini?
Well, the short version is I was just a fan of his work, obviously, because of Wild at Heart and his stories about his childhood in Chicago. And I dropped him a line through his website. This was long before I would even think about making a film. I wasn't. I'd taken a break from filmmaking actually, and was writing for this blog called Chicagoist. So I think that was back in 2008 or so. So we did an interview. We just kept in touch. His travels brought him to Chicago, so I got to meet him in person. Um, and that just planted a seed in the back of my head. Uh, Skipping several years forward, I decided to make a documentary about his work, as a way of exploring that time and place in Chicago history, which really interested me. I thought that would be a fascinating lens through which to look at that time period. And Barry was completely on board. I told him, I don't want there to be any talking heads. I want all original music. I just want it to be archival footage and materials. And he was super excited about that. And so he said, oh, well, we should get Willem Dafoe and Matt Dillon to read some stories for your movie. And I said, of course, that sounds wonderful. These are actors I never in a million years would have been able to even, meet without Barry's help. And Barry just connected me directly to them. So it was just an amazing blessing. So Roy's World was made. It premiered in February 2020.
Oh wow.
Not the best time to launch a film.
Right.
We had a gala premiere in Glasgow. You know, we were on top of the world, and then suddenly the world shut down. Eventually, the film did show at several festivals, and now it's streaming online on Amazon and Fandor and many other places. In fact, you can even check it out through your public library. Roy's World was really more of an impressionistic documentary sort of essay film, but I did want to, you know, work with actors and do something more fictional and narrative. And Barry always said, you know, if you ever are interested in doing another one of my stories and, you know, making it into a film, just let me know. So, My Last Martini was a story that Barry wrote, I think, the late 90s, early 2000s. It's quite an old story, and I'd read it many years before, but obviously it kind of lodged itself in my brain. Worked it up into a short script, um, and Barry immediately gave his blessing. Um, and In the original story, um, the two main characters are, you know, basically young people in their 30s. And I thought it would be really interesting if the female main character was somebody older.
Hmm.
That dynamic was super interesting to me. And so that's when Wendy Roby came on board.
Now, how did you get her on board?
She had seen Roy's World and was a big fan of that. She is a Chicagoan, and we have some mutual friends. So, yeah, I was just very fortunate enough to be able to send her the script directly. And I think less than a week went by, and she wrote back and she said, I love the script. I'd love to do it. She said that she'd never done a short film before, which I found really surprising. But she was totally up for it, so I had to take advantage of that good fortune.
So before we go on any further about My Last Martini, let me ask, how did David Lynch end up seeing Roy's World?
Well, that was a fun little uh, process. When I got to picture lock on Roy's World, Barry hadn't seen any of it, by the way. He really did not micromanage or exercise any creative control over whatsoever. So I knew that when the movie was more or less finished, I needed to show it to him in person. I didn't want to just, you know, send him a DVD and share it with him that way. I wanted to be right there with him. So I flew out to Berkeley, um, rented a screening room, and much to my horror, he invited his closest friends and his family. So I knew that if I flopped, I was going to flop really hard. Um, Luckily, that's not the way it went. We watched it, and he he was uh, he was in love with it, which is the most uh, special, you know, reaction I could ask for. So after the screening, Barry's driving me back to the BART station because I was staying in San Francisco and had to catch the train back. And I pulled into the parking lot and I was like, Barry, could I ask one special favor of you? He said, sure. And I was like, could you personally contact David Lynch and get him to see the film? And because Barry had praised the film so heartily before, he couldn't very much say no to that request. So he indeed sent a link to the film to Mr. Lynch. And wow, yeah, David Lynch saw my movie and had some great things to say about it, and was willing to contribute a quote to my poster. So That's just wow, pretty amazing experience.
Did he send the quote to Barry and then to you, or did he send it to you directly?
He sent it to Barry first, and I can say this now that Mr. Lynch has passed on. David Lynch's emails were all in caps, just like a certain hard of hearing FBI agent that he played. So yeah, he contributed a quote through Barry, and then I was able to put that on the poster.
What was your reaction when you read it? Because it's kind of a lengthy quote. I'm sure you were savoring every single word.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the 13-year-old that I was at one time watching Twin Peaks on network TV for the first time, and just being utterly mystified that what I was seeing was actually being shown on network TV, um, and just trying to remember the vast universe that opened up because of Twin Peaks, and having that experience when I did at a very impressionable age. So, it was just fantastic. I mean, I think behind every filmmaker, there's a gigantic film fan, and when you're able to interact with your heroes, and they end up liking your work on its own merits, that's just incredible.
I agree. You have Wendy Roby involved. How did you go about getting the other two leads?
So the other lead was not supposed to be Mickey. We had rehearsed for more than a month with the original actor Michael, who is an executive producer on the film, and he had great chemistry with Wendy. We were really excited to start filming. And 1 week before the shoot, Michael called me and said, I just tested positive for COVID.
Oh, wow.
And we couldn't change our shoot date, and we couldn't change the location. We couldn't change the date of shooting the location, especially a tiny little film like ours. It's a miracle to get everything in place at the exact time and place where things need to happen. So
Mhm.
literally 3 days before the shoot, I passed along a copy of the script to Mickey O'Sullivan, who I had seen in a film earlier in the year called Handle with Care. Wonderful film. And Mickey just happened to be free that weekend. So I said, Mickey, what do you think about shooting this film in 3 days? And he said, sure. He was totally up for it. So he literally got to the set. We had no rehearsals. He just, jumped in feet first. And to some extent, it really worked because the two main characters are total strangers. So the
Right.
fact that they had never actually interacted before we shot the thing, I think really lent a certain je ne sais quoi quality, which turned out really well on screen.
And then the other actor that shows up at the start.
Yeah, so that's Madrid. His character's name is Sharif. We had a casting call, mostly because I was interested in seeing what that was like. I hadn't done a casting call since 1997,
Yeah.
and it's a lot more digital now. But basically, you hang out with actors and see what gels. Madrid was the last person who read for us, and my producers and I all agreed that we loved his voice, we loved his presence. Um, so we cast him, and the day of the shoot, because the acting role is a small one, it turns out that Mickey and Madrid are old friends and knew each other. So their characters in the film are supposed to be old friends as well. So it's when those sort of things start to happen, you realize, okay, the universe is telling me that this is going to be okay. everything's falling into place.
It's one of those happy accidents that Lynch always talks about. Now, where did you
Yes.
get that location? Because it's beautiful in there.
When I first showed the script to my husband, his first reaction was, "Oh, well, you have to film this at Bryant's." And I was like, "Of course, Bryant's." Bryant's Cocktail Lounge is this amazing bar in Milwaukee that's been open since 1938. And it's one of my favorite bars in the world. It's the kind of place where you step through the doors and you're like going back in time. There's no TVs there. It's always incredibly dark. It's its own beautiful little universe. And luckily, through mutual friends, I was able to connect with John Dye, who owns Bryant's. And he was totally psyched about us using the space. He said, Bryant's is always closed on Mondays. So why don't you just take over the bar on a Monday? That's exactly what we did. So we shot the whole thing in one day. Jackson Mercier plays the bartender and indeed is a bartender at Bryant's. Did a beautiful job. And, that wonderful atmosphere on screen is something you can't fake. So uh, casting is 90% of the movie, and finding the right location is definitely part of the casting process.
You found this short story years ago, it stays in your mind. You run it by Barry. I'm thinking about doing this. He says, go for it. So from you deciding, I want to make this, to you having a script that you're happy with is roughly how long?
This is the quickest thing I've ever made. Really. I mean, like from initial idea to the shoot was about 3 months.
Wow.
Uh, it's one of those beautiful moments when everything falls into place. The script came together really fast. It's a small cast. We were able to pull that together. My producers, John and Aaron, were able to call on some favors find the crew that we needed. And since we're only shooting one day, it's easy to get people to say, "Yeah, I'll work on your film for one day. Why not?" Um, so it was incredibly fast. We filmed on August 19th. In fact, the editing actually took longer than pre-production and production took. With editing, such a chamber piece that's super intimate, you have to make sure that every single moment is right because there is no room for error. You're really with these people in this booth the entire 14 minutes. And if one look is out of place or one cut doesn't feel right, it's going to throw off the entire rhythm. Um, we did pay a lot of attention to the color timing to get that very special look that I wanted, which was based on a Jackie Gleason album cover. Actually, there's this great album cover called the album is called Music, Martinis, and Memories, late 50s, and it's a very glamorous woman sitting alone at the bar holding a cocktail glass with this very melancholy look on her face. And it just has the most beautiful feeling. And I wanted to capture those kind of burnt orange colors, the sort of saturated look of like a late 50s Technicolor film. And then we had some music choices to make, and that took a while. Coastal Dives, look for him on Bandcamp. He wrote a beautiful piece for the film. And then I wanted to use the Settee piece in the second half of the film. So, the editing is just about getting all those things to really function in harmony. And that takes a long time. So, I actually think if you're doing filmmaking right, the editing is going to be the longest part of the process because it's kind of like you're cooking something and you're tweaking the recipe, and you just want everything to blend harmoniously. As the story unfolds, it's cutting back and forth basically between close-ups, and then when we go back to them, they're suddenly much
Right.
closer together.
Right.
And I wanted to show that, this moment that they've shared is literally brought them closer together, and I did that by breaking the continuity. So, some people have noticed that, some people haven't. I feel like it's the kind of thing where I just took the license of making a mistake on purpose, as it was.
I didn't think it was a mistake. I thought maybe there was just more to the dialogue that I, like,
Nope.
crunched out. Okay. Before we go, I just want people to know the next public showing is September 5th and the 14th at the Lake County Film Festival in Illinois, followed by
Yes.
Michigan and Ohio and Florida, North Carolina. And I believe you said that there was something you were going to be doing something in Illinois as well in October, correct? But you don't have the dates yet.
Yeah, that's something we're still putting together. Once you finish a short film and you start sending it out to festivals, it's in some ways it's the most unpleasant part of the process, because you've made a film, you're excited about it, you want people to see it, and then that's immediately followed by several months of waiting. So after the screening at the Music Box in Chicago, we showed it to 700 people, and like the crowd went wild, and all these people are writing reviews of it on Letterboxd, and then like 2 months went by when nothing happened, and then suddenly September and October, we're basically screening every weekend. So it's a little dizzying. The best place to keep in touch with what's going on with the film is to go to our Letterboxd page. My own little review there is kind of functioning as a little mini web page about news of the film and where it's showing. You know, Drop me a line. I'd love to share this film with as many David Lynch fans as I can.
So what's next for you?
Well, for about 4 years now, I've been trying to get another feature film off the ground. It's a very, very challenging time to find financing for films right now. There's this wonderful novel called Depraved Indifference by the cult author Gary Indiana. It's a very, very black comedy. It's sort of about greed and narcissism and the septic tank of the American dream. So I'm trying to get that off the ground. I'd love to do that, but that's kind of a higher budgeted kind of a film. Beyond that, I've just got my eyes peeled, kind of like Mickey's character in the film. I've got my eyes peeled for my next story. Yeah, I'm hoping to collaborate with a writer or another screenwriter who might be able to suggest my next film. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, if there's one thing that David Lynch taught me, it's that the happy accidents are what make filmmaking special. So the best thing you can do is to just keep your eyes peeled and wait to cross paths with the right people. And I'm hoping with My Last Martini getting out and about in the world that that's going to happen.
One thing I learned from him is don't hit the gas when the light is red. Just kind of wait for the signs to show you it's time to move forward.
Right.
So,
And I think that's exactly what happened with My Last Martini. Everything just came together really quickly. So the time was right to make this film, and whatever my next film is going to be, it's going to happen the same way. I really, really believe that.
well, congratulations. This is a wonderful film. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a big thumbs up
Bye.
and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. All right, guys.
Great to chat with you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.